Hi everyone, Christina here. Welcome to another card video at my YouTube channel and blog. Today I'm going to be creating a background that's made out of watercolor, but I want it to look a little bit like the Northern Lights. So I just did a Google search for Northern Lights to see what type of colors are in the sky when the Northern Lights are visible. So that's the color inspiration for this background. And I'm going to be creating it using some Tombow markers. So I did this background a couple of times before I came across one that I really loved. And in the first one, I used some of that kind of neon green color that it seemed to be in every single picture of the Northern Lights. However, I couldn't get that neon green color to really blend with the other shades as well. So I decided to omit the green color and instead use some purples, pinks, and blues in order to get a nice color. So I'm using my craft sheet and I'm just scribbling out some of those colors onto it. The craft sheet is a very slick surface, so these inks will bead up on the surface and they won't dry or be absorbed into the surface of the craft sheet. And I apologize for any of the blurriness on this part. My camera doesn't have anything to focus on at the moment, so it was having a little trouble focusing. So after I drew all of those scribbles on, I took a mister or just a spray bottle and misted on some water. I wanted to use lots and lots of water to create some big droplets. And then I took some Strathmore watercolor paper. This is the cold press watercolor paper that's cut to 5x7. And I pressed that down into the marker ink that I've added water to. And I'm really squishing it around, moving it around. And when I lifted it up, I realized there were some areas near the top that didn't have any color. So I very carefully just pounced the top color back into the ink. And then I decided that I better just dry this before anything changes, because I was really loving how the colors really blended together and made a kind of a soft looking sky. It was exactly what I was looking for, and it's something that I couldn't have even predicted, but I loved how it looked. In fact, you might remember that I had some circle dies on screen at the very beginning of the video. That's because I had planned to cut this sky watercolor piece into a circle shape, but in the end I decided that I could not spare, or I could not bear cutting off any of that watercolor piece because I thought it was so beautiful and I love how it turned out. So instead I trimmed it down to be a standard size card, which is 4¼ by 5½. And then I took this die from Lawn Fawn. This is one of their brand new dies. It just came out for their holiday release. And I'm cutting some Basil Licorice Twist cardstock. This is a nice black cardstock. Just running that through my Big Shot machine. This die gives you a cut edge all the way across. It doesn't cut those house shapes out completely. It leaves the bottom edge uncut so that it can be put onto some cardstock and it can be whatever height you want. So I've prepped that black cardstock with an anti-static powder tool. And then I stamped Noel from one of Lawn Fawn's new stamp sets. So I'm using a couple new products from Lawn Fawn. And this is actually, I think it might be my first holiday card of the season. I'm not entirely sure. And if you're new to card making or you're new to my YouTube channel, you might be thinking, why is she making a holiday card in August? That's because when you hand make a lot of Christmas cards, you have to start early so that you have them all done by the time it's time to send them. So I coated that stamped greeting in white embossing powder from Hero Arts. I stamped it initially in Versamark ink, which is a very sticky ink, and that made it so that that white powder would stick to it. And then I used a heat tool to melt the embossing powder. So in order to adhere the line of houses to this watercolor piece, I cut down some foam tape so it's a really skinny strip, and then I removed the release paper on the back side of the foam, and that allowed me to shape this foam to the slope of that die cut. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off a little bit of that extra foam on the end, and then I can press that down onto my watercolor piece. Now, if I would have had the bottom of the black piece lined up with the bottom of the watercolor piece, I would have created a regular card. It's like a regular card size. But I couldn't bear to cover up any of that watercolor, and I loved how that bright pink just faded off into white. So I decided to go ahead and just make a custom size for a card today. So I'm going to have to make my card base. You'll notice that one is a little bit taller than the other, and it's just a ½ inch taller. So the finished card size is actually about just under 6.5 inches tall. It's about 6 3/8 tall by 4 1/4 wide. So I just scored that at 6 3/8 to make a flap, and then I put some adhesive on there, and then I can fold this flap over and it will create my card base. And this is going to be the perfect size for my watercolor piece. And now I can just add a little bit of foam adhesive onto the back of the black area, and also some regular adhesive to the watercolor. And then I can put it directly onto the front of my card base. Now, in order to get these to line up just right, I'm going to turn the card base upside down and my watercolor piece upside down and rest them against my work surface here. That's going to line up that edge, and then I can press them together. There were a few spots that were not lined up. They weren't cut perfectly. I'm sure you guys experienced that as well. So I just used my scissors and also an X-Acto knife to help even up all of those edges and make sure they were perfect. Finished off the bottom edge of the card using a Uniball Signal Broad white gel pen to create some faux stitching or a dashed line. And that pretty much finishes the card for today. Hope you guys enjoy. This is just a fun, easy, simple card. You could definitely change up the supplies used and the colors, and it would be just as beautiful. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next card video.